Hi everyone, we are here in Columbia Falls, Maine at the Wreaths Across America Museum with founder Maura Worcester and Karen Worcester, the executive director. Married for 42 years, you wouldn't know it by chatting with you two. Certainly a pleasure to be here though, Maura. You are celebrating 25 years kind of what was maybe a mistake that started out as a...
Well, I always said it was a mistake, but I don't think there's any such thing as a mistake. So I think the good Lord had a lot to do with it, and but it did start that way, yeah, back in 1992.
Yeah, so give us a little bit of background.
We were, back in 92, we built a factory up in Topsfield, Maine, and we were just completing that factory that fall. And we had a couple of carpenters up there that were doing the finishing touches on the factory. And I told them, I said, if you get an opportunity, buy a few wreaths. We can always use a few wreaths, Well, I forgot that I'd said that, and it got right to the end of the season, and it was like December the 10th or so. I got a phone call from one of the carpenters, and they said, boy, we had a great weekend. We bought the factory right solid full of wreaths. And then it was too late to sell the wreaths, but they were nice and fresh, and I wanted to put them somewhere that would do the most good, and so I thought about Arlington, and that's how it all started.
And Karen, now 25 years later, here we are in a museum with how many volunteers, and tell us a little bit about now where it's going. And
well, let me pick up a little bit where he left off, because he remembered Arlington from being there as a boy, and he did get permission, and the family went down with 5,000 wreaths and took all day to place those wreaths. And when he came back, it had impacted him so greatly, and he started telling the kids and I about, that, well, I read this name, and this young man was 19, and I wonder if he knew, when he climbed over that wall or went into that, how long did he lay there wounded, or, you just wonder. You wonder about the stories, and and then another day go by, and he'd mention a name, and immediately upon coming home, we decided we were always going to do that. And so after 1992, we made the wreath special. It was just the family's way to say thank you for many, many years until 2005. And that's when the picture was taken of the wreaths in the snow, and our lives changed, and thousands of emails started coming in, and we started learning a lot from the calls and the conversations that we were having with people that wanted to get involved. And at that point, we realized more than just saying thank you, that there was more that could be accomplished with what we were doing. What's the most important things we're hearing, and that was to remember, to honor, and teach. Even in 2006, people wanted to get involved, so we did the outreach. We called it Wreaths Across America, but it was still just a family thing, and that first year was phenomenal. The convoy was formed, just life went crazy, and people just wanted to give and support. And so by the end of 2006, we pulled together people who had helped us for 25 years and formed the 501c3. Wow. That was in 2007. We first started taking donations, and it was a slow start, and I think we placed in 2007 around 30,000 wreaths, and half of them were donated by the Worcester Wreath Company. But this year, we're on track to place 1.2 million wreaths at 1,200 locations, and we're hoping for full coverage at Arlington. It looks like that's going to happen for us. But more importantly, millions, literally, of people that get involved. 1,200 locations. Each location has a volunteer coordinator. And then the Worcester Wreath Company donates ceremonial wreaths, but if they want individual wreaths, they go out and seek sponsorships. And it's just a phenomenal way to teach. And we emphasize that we don't decorate graves. We're carrying gifts, usually from loved ones. More than 90% of the wreaths that are placed are a $15 gift from a family member that we place in the hands of a volunteer to take that message that they're remembered and honored. So it's a lot of hands, a lot of hearts, and a lot of volunteers.
You've probably heard so many stories from family members over the years. Is there any one that just on the top of your head comes to mind that has touched your heart so much?
We receive a lot of phone calls of families. A few years ago, we had a Gold Star mother call us. She had buried her son at Arlington, and never even had gotten back to see the stone after the stone was placed. And when he heard that, he said, we need to bring her. And we were able to reach out and bring her to Arlington to see her son's stone and to place a wreath. But things happen in this. Lots of times the Gold Star mothers will call them God winks, but things that happen. And there are so many stories that have happened to us around placing wreaths just at Arlington. And, you know, I remember this time of year, Section 60 is, you know, I think of it as a live part of the cemetery because so many of the current conflict are buried there. And so it's not unusual to see families with small children. But this one particular year, the stones have been covered, and we were walking down to Section 60, and a young mother with 2 small children, one little boy, probably 4 or so, and another baby on her hip. And they recognized us, and they came over, and they just started saying, you don't know what it means to us. This is hard. And for us to be here this first year without their dad, and to see thousands of people here to embrace us and show that they remember us. And she said, could you take a minute, because my son put the wreath on his dad's grave, and he wants to show you. And so we're like holding ourselves together. And we followed the family over, and you've seen so many times the picture of the wreaths against the stones, and they're all so uniform. And this one little boy had placed his dad's wreath like on the top, flat on the top. And I'll never forget that. And, you know, I'm sure that years from now, that little boy might remember that we didn't forget. And so it's so important. You know, I said 1.2 million wreaths, but the important part of the mission is to cover the masses but remember the individuals.
Right.
So one at a time and one story at a time, one name at a time. We always, since Morrow went that first year, he says, you know, you feel like you need to say their names out loud. And years later, I was given a quote, and the quote was, you died twice. First, when your heart stops beating, and the second time when your name is spoken for the very last time. And we're not going to let that happen. So on December 17th, you know, more than 1 million volunteers will place more than 1 million wreaths and raise more than 1 million heroes' names so they're not forgotten.
Well, thank you guys. I will be there, and I'm excited to be a part of it. Thank you. 25 years with one little order. It turned into quite the blessing.
Yeah.
And
Truly is a blessing.
So thank you.
It really is a blessing to our family. You know, it means a lot to us.
And many others. We're now going to check in with one of the Gold Star family members that we've touched. Here with Dolly and Jim Sullivan, Gold Star family members, proud parents of Captain Christopher Sullivan, who was killed in 2005 in Iraq. Before we get to know your son, your brave son, and head over to the Tipland to see his tree among so many others, I'd like you to talk a little bit about how you were first introduced to Wreaths Across America and what the program has meant to you.
Well, like everybody else, I mean, we saw the year that they had snow, and somebody from the Department of Defense snapped that picture in the older part of the cemetery where they had put the wreaths. And like everybody else, we kind of got caught up into it, and we decided, oh, next year we got to take part in that. So we went down to Arlington for the weekend that they were putting the wreaths on, and got in the cemetery ahead of the convoy and helped put the wreaths on. And we've been doing it ever since. For a number of years we went down by ourselves, but the last 5 years, I think we've actually been on the convoy, 4 years anyway, and it's just amazing to go from here all the way down there. They started this program with allowing you to tag a tree for your loved one in the tipland. I really bought into that, and it's just amazing because that tree is a living memorial. For 20 years, that tree will live at least, maybe longer, and every 2 to 3 years, they take tips from that tree as they do others, and it's in a wreath someplace, either Arlington or another national cemetery, or even in one of our cemeteries overseas. And it's honoring another veteran, and so it's like Christopher is still giving and still honoring the people that he served with. And it's so much better to go visit that tree that's living than to go look at his stone that's cold and just absolute reality that he's gone.
Well, something that I thought was special is in Wreaths Across America, when you say their name,
Right.
they're still obviously with us.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, let's go and see his tree
Okay.
and get
Good.
to know
Let me
him a
show
little
you.
bit better.
Yeah.
He had such a sense of humor. The general shared with us that when he was doing the operations plans, he in the middle of it would put a joke, or he might put the score of the Patriots game
Yeah.
in one of the quarters or something. And he says, we think he was doing it to see if we were actually reading all the plans that he was making. But-
So when you were tagging this tree and you picked this one,
Well, Christopher was tall, so I wanted a tall tree.
very tall,
Yeah.
strong tree.
And lean. This tree is maybe 4 years, and it was chipped the second year. So it was chipped a couple of years ago.
It
and
might
it's
be
just-
tipped again next year.
But I wanted people to, if they happened to come, I wanted to have his picture here so they could see
Yeah.
Christopher and know that he was real. It's not just a name. Merry Christmas from heaven. I love you all dearly. Now don't shed a tear. I'm spending my Christmas with Jesus this year. I said to Jim, I want to go put that out on his tree. So that's
Beautiful.
what we did.
Well, thank you. Well, pleasure to meet you both. I look forward to
it's
seeing
nice
you
to
in
meet you.
Arlington
Yes,
again.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And from all of us here at the Maine Life team and Quirk Chevrolet, our sponsors, thank you to all of our service members and their families. For more information on how you can get more involved, volunteer, tag a tree, go to wreathsacrossamerica.org.